Hello folks, Phil Gallagher of ThrabenU here for another Legacy video. Today we are going to be playing with Simone S's Orzhov Obedience decklist. This is essentially a spin on the classic archetype Deadguy Ale, where we are trying to build in a Helm of Obedience kill. So short version, Helm of Obedience mills your opponent until you hit a creature, and then you get to put that creature into play. And we are trying to circumvent part of how this card works by playing Rest in Peace or Dauthi Voidwalker. Both of these cards prevent the cards from actually going to the opponent's graveyard. So if you activate a Helm of Obedience for X equals 1, while you have either Rest in Peace or Dauthi Voidwalker in play, it just mills your opponent's entire deck, and they all go to exile, and then your opponent loses the game when they try to draw a card, and they have an empty library. We have a lot of the classic Deadguy Ale staples here. We have Dark Ritual into Hymn to Tourach and Dark Confidant, but we also have some newer tech in here. If you're following Legacy, I don't need to tell you that Prismatic Ending is good. This is just an absolutely amazing removal spell here, and I'm super happy to be packing a playset of those. Now, the next thing here is a little bit of a hot take, and well, all right, I'll show you what's here, and then I'll give you my thoughts. This decklist is playing an Indatha Triome, as well as a Savai Triome, so that you can get up to X equals 4 for Prismatic Ending. I am unsure about how I feel about this. ETB tapped lands are an absolutely huge downside in Legacy. I think I am comfortable playing one of these triomes so that I can Prismatic Ending for X equals 3. I don't know that I need to play two. The donor was pretty clear that they really wanted to have access to Ending for X equals 4, so I'm not going to remove them. But I'm going to say in advance, I think these ETB tapped lands are going to do more harm than good to me during this league, because I have a lot of mana-intensive symbols here if we kind of take a look at these, and I also have some very important turn 1 plays that I can't necessarily just like take off to play these Triome tapped. And I also have like kind of a CMC 4 card that kind of is going to feel like a CMC 5 card at some times. I made one major change to this deck list. This deck list was originally submitted with an Enlightened Tutor package. And I very, very strongly believe that Enlightened Tutor is not a playable Magic the Gathering card in Legacy anymore. I think that card has just fully fallen off the face of the earth. It's very rare that top of the library tutors are playable in Legacy. And kind of the one exception here is Personal Tutor in Doomsday, and not even all of the builds of Doomsday play that. But Doomsday is so incredibly confident that if they put a Doomsday on top of their library, they're going to win either this turn or the next turn in most cases. Whereas I don't feel like this deck is nearly as confident, because your opponents get a chance to interact with the Enlightened Tutor via counter magic. They get a chance to interact with the spell you cast via counter magic. Sometimes a card gets stuck in your hand for a turn, so it's vulnerable to disruption. And like this is something that is very much going to eat a daze, for example. So to like play an Enlightened Tutor, telegraph a 4-drop is coming, and then let your opponent, they need to know that they need to beat that. That's a lot to ask. And so I cut those from the deck. The downside of doing that is I want to say the original version ran like 2 Helms or something like that. I'm now running 4 Helms, so my Dark Confidants get like ever so slightly worse. But I would rather just draw the cards that I'm looking for by running more copies of them than play Enlightened Tutor and take that turn off. I just don't think I can afford to take a turn off in this Murktide Regent world that I'm currently recording this video in. Maybe things will have changed on the banned list by the time this video comes out. Who knows? As far as the sideboard goes, I had to make some small edits here as well because I took out the Enlightened Tutors. The original sideboard had some Pithing Needles and some Humilities as things that were going to be relatively powerful tutor targets, but I replaced them with, I think, Plague Engineers and Necromentia for sort of the combo matchups. And I'm pretty happy to have these like really good cards that I can Dark Ritual out. The way that this deck is kind of seeking to improve versus combo in the post-sideboard games is really Opposition Agent. If you stop your opponents from searching their library, that does major damage to like storm archetypes like Ant, as well as things like Doomsday. I'm really excited to try out this deck. I absolutely love playing Deadguy Ale and Deadguy Ale adjacent decks, and this deck is really cool. Dauthi Voidwalker is also a super sweet card, so I'm happy to see this in action once again. Anyway, if you're new here, please consider subscribing, and if you are a regular, throw me a like or a comment before we begin, or partway through the video. It's one of the easiest ways to support my content for free. If you end up wanting to try this one out or get one of your own videos on the channel, that information is available in the video description. Alright, let's battle. Okay, I've kept my round 1 opening hand here. I am really heavy on discard, so if discard ends up being good against this opponent because, like, say they're playing a combo deck of some kind, this hand is going to be absolutely fantastic. I have no threat currently, but I do have half of my combo, so to speak. Hey, not bad. I'm just going to lead on the basic swamp and give it the old Thoughtseize. Oh, my opponent's hand does not do a shit. I think I'll just take the Endurance here. I don't care about their Force of Will right now because none of my cards are, like, good. And by that, I mean none of my cards are non-replaceable. Everything that's in my hand is, like, redundant in some way, so I don't care if my opponent, like, sits on their Force of Will for a little while. I'm just good with that. And do I want to show white yet? I don't think I need to show white yet. I'm gonna go ahead and cast a Hymn. Alright, we have prompted the fetch from my opponent. Makes me think they drew either a Brainstorm or more likely an Icefang Coatl. Oh, no, they did draw the Brainstorm. So notably, my opponent's going to be in a really weird situation for what do they hide on top of their library? Because if they keep a bunch of lands in hand, I might just take them straight up off a color here. Alright, I took Caracas and Snow-Covered Island from that. And I will probably just repeat the whole Hymn to Tourach thing next turn, and then fetch a tapped Tri-land. Oh my god, this is so much discard. Again, with the brutalizing. Okay, we have gotten... Oh, yeah, we got a Shark Typhoon there. Tasty. So then I'm going to play, like, Dauthi Voidwalker and Rest in Peace, and life's going to be good for me. My opponent protected their land. Please don't just, like, have Jace as your last card. I will be a little salty. Motherfucker. Like... Alright. We'll go ahead and end step, fetch one of these Triomes. And then I get to play Dauthi Voidwalker followed by Rest in Peace. Is that better than double Dauthi Voidwalker? That's probably not better than double Dauthi Voidwalker. So let's go ahead and fetch. Alright, there's one. And here's the other. I'm setting myself up to be in a bad position versus Terminus, but I just have to take this Jace off the battlefield or it is going to run away with the game. I've played 3 discard spells already. I have a 4th in hand. I really just need to, like, deal with this stuff. Okay, I don't care about the Narset. It does make my hand a little bit awkward if my opponent spikes a Swords to Plowshares off of this. Alright, they've grabbed a Force of Will, sure. I believe I'm going to be doing a pre-combat Hymn to Tourach to just kind of get a read on what my opponent actually has in hand. Because I really don't want to... Okay, I just grabbed 2 things. That means I get to kill both of these Planeswalkers. Oh shit, I should have played Rest in Peace. Shit. I could have sent these Planeswalkers to exile. That was just clicking... Or no, I'm still going to send them to exile. They're going to go to Graveyard and then they're going to go to exile. Yeah, that's fine. Alright. And now I Rest in Peace and nuke all of this stuff. Okay. So I can get my own Jace the Mind Sculptor next turn rather than have Dauthi Voidwalkers, which are going to be susceptible to just a blind ripped Terminus. Okay, yeah, and my opponent, seeing that, opts to concede. What do I have versus this deck? I think with, like, the Dauthi Voidwalker and the Rest in Peace, I am fine with dealing with an Uro. It's the Planeswalkers I have to deal with. So, Fracture just straight up destroys a Planeswalker. My Prismatic Endings, if I pay attention to trying to fetch the Triomes, can answer a Jace. It may eat my words from the deck tech. I don't think my opponent has enough copies of anything that I care enough about to bring in Necromantia. And Opposition Agent is something that I can play. I don't think I want to mess around with Tide Hollow Sculler versus the amount of removal that my opponent has, so I'm going to swap those out for the Fractures. And then I don't know that I need the full sets of both, like, Swords to Plowshares and Prismatic Ending. I could play some number of Opposition Agents and try to muck with my opponent's lands. The question is, like, how many? Because I still probably want a couple of Swords to Plowshares as an answer to, like, an Uro or a large Shark or something like that. And, like, Prismatic Ending does require me to fetch a Triome. 2? Let's do 2. Like, when I don't have just an absolute, like, rock solid feel, or, like, which one of those is right, I'll split. On the play, if I lose this game, I might just play the full playset of Opposition Agent. Okay. I don't think this is keepable, because my opponent will get Force of Will, Swords to Plowshares, and Prismatic Ending as answers to this Bob, and if this Bob gets answered, I think I just straight up lose the game. This hand is not exactly great, but I don't think I want to go to 5. My opponent has already mulliganed to 5, and I think I am just going to try and keep a hand with more action in it, rather than try to mulligan for a hand that is explicitly more powerful. This hand already does have access to 3 different colors for Prismatic Ending, so, like, that's a thing. Alright, what are you doing? I assume it's Ponder. Yep. And that was a quick shuffle. Alright. So this is just going to be a tapped Triome, then I'll play Dauthi Voidwalker on 2 and start pressuring my opponent, while also messing with their graveyard. Oh no, they ended on a 1-lander. This is gonna really help me, because I think I showed them in Dauthi Triome last time. Because my hand isn't great, but, like, they have nothing going on. Yeah, this is good. This is very good now. So I get to play Dauthi Voidwalker this turn, and then attempt a Helm kill next turn. I don't think it's going to work. I think one of these things is just going to get Force of Willed. But it's not this one. Ooh, not even, like, a Brainstorm here to try to get through. Yeah. So I guess I'll take my 3 damage first. I don't expect my opponent can do anything with a single blue mana here. Alright, they go to 16. I mean, let's see if we win. Dark Ritual. Helm of Obedience. It has resolved. I'm going to go ahead and go to my opponent's upkeep. And I will activate Helm of Obedience for X equals 1. Alright. They could Endurance 2 cards back into their deck. Yeah! I love it. Alright, my opponent reveals a Yorion, which probably means death on taxes. This hand has a bunch of mana, but it doesn't actually do anything. I think I'm going to mulligan and try to find something that's a little objectively stronger. This I'll keep. I have to throw one of these back. It's the question of, like, do I throw back the second Thoughtseize, or do I throw back the Dark Ritual? The Dark Ritual lets me Thoughtseize and him on turn 1. But I kind of, like, lose out on some card quality in a game that is going to very likely drag on a long time. So, like, maybe I'm not supposed to play the Dark Ritual. I'm going to throw back a Thoughtseize. I think this Dark Ritual is valuable enough that it is worth a card. One of the easiest ways to just absolutely body a deck like Death and Taxes is just to, like, just completely knock them off of their resource. Oh, fuck me. Their resources very early. I don't have Plague Engineers in game 1, so if I want to answer this mom, I really do need to do it right now. I'm not stoked about this, but I think I have to do it. And I think I need to go ahead and grab the basic here so as to not play into Wasteland. The reason why I'm just, like, so not into not using my Dark Ritual here is because of how good Thalia is against my current hand. This is fine. I assume this is just, yeah, this is just going to get Cauldra. I will go ahead and pick up a basic here. And now is the eternal question of, like, is it correct to cast the Thoughtseize first or the Hymn to Tourach first? Since my opponent already has lands, I think I'm just going to go ahead and cast the Hymn to Tourach first, and then kind of take my pick of the remaining cards. Hit Stoneforge and Spirit of the Labyrinth there. Ooh, baby. And take Caracas. So my opponent is down to 0 gas. Now, the caveat there is that they still do have a 4/5 shitter that they can just put into their hand at any point. And I'll take my 1 damage here. That's fine. All right, a Spirit of the Labyrinth. Sure. This is a fine use of my Dark Ritual. This just cheats this out early and makes it more likely that I can win the game on the spot if necessary. I am also going to go ahead and just fetch another basic swamp here. I know that I have the Triome that I could need in some cases, but I think this game is going to be over one way or another before I would go and use a... It's bad for me that they drew that land, because that means that they can just cast Yorion next turn. Alright. So, I Thoughtseize, I take my opponent's Yorion. Now, it is just the question, like, can I beat board? There is a world where I am supposed to just activate this Helm of Obedience, so as to not just, like, die to these 2 creatures, because this is a 2-turn clock. I think I am going to just natural Helm my opponent here. I don't know... Alright, I missed. Because I don't know how dense my deck actually is with removal. Okay, I mean, I've successfully played around that Wasteland. I'm not losing my lands. My opponent might Wasteland my Marsh Flats, though. Kind of a heads-up play. To fetch or not fetch? I'm gonna go for not fetch and hope there's a creature in their top 3. Because there usually should be. Every individual point of life is so valuable here, because, like, I'm probably going to trade a body with this creature and then, like, leave this around. I also can't hit Thalia, because my opponent has Caracas. I go for X equals 3. Let's see what we get. Whiff. Alright. I mean, I looked at 5 cards from my opponent's deck via Helm and didn't hit a creature. That's probably statistically quite unlikely. Hey, Livy. Plague Engineers are great. Fractures are fine. Opposition Agents and Sudden Edicts are also playable. I am probably not going to play all of this stuff. I would like to play a control game versus my opponent until I can combo them off. My opponent is so interactive, I'm not, like, super hopeful for my ability to kind of win this matchup. I can't board all of this stuff. I might not be able to play the opposition agents. I think I need these 7 cards. And this is probably going to mean boarding out some of my discard. The Yorion deck grinds super well, so I'm not sure if my discard game really is going to hang as this game goes very long. I think the discard game is very good, like say turns 1 through 4, and then from turn 5 on, I think my discard spells are just going to be really outclassed. I think I am going to keep the Thoughtseizes, because dismantling the Stoneforge Mystic package is pretty important. And I'm going to trim a Dark Ritual. I don't want to trim any of my combo pieces, because I think I have to win this game via combo most of the time. This has 1 land, that's not acceptable here. Has no lands, that's not acceptable here. In Bob we trust. I am on 5. I think I'm just going to keep 1 of each basic in hand and cast Thoughtseize into Bob and let Bob take the wheel. It's possible I am supposed to keep the black fetch here. Oh, what a set of cards. Urza Sagas are crushing here. This is an insanely tough decision. I mean, I don't think I win this match just, like, looking at our 2 opening hands. I'm gonna take the Stoneforge. I'm just so not equipped to deal with a Kaldra. I can beat this Mother of Runes, even if I don't end up being able to source the Plowshares it. I can beat that with a Plague Engineer later. But if the Cauldron slips into play, I just don't beat my opponent's deck. This means I get to play Aether Vial on 1, though, which I'm not super stoked about. But I think I am more or less all in on making Bob happen. And if I take the Aether Vial, my opponent plays Mother of Runes on 1, which means that I have to Swords to Plowshares on my turn 2 instead of playing a Bob, and then that curve doesn't line up super well. Whereas this way I can hope to draw another land and then try to do something about that mom. My Plains is likely to get ported down now, though. Yeah, that's fine. Alright, I've picked up an Urborg and a Dark Ritual. So I guess first things first, let's see if my opponent wants to trade my Bob for their mom. I would be very happy to do right now, since I have a second Bob. They're not into that trade. I will play a second Bob, and now I'm not going to get a chance to answer that mom. That's okay. I'm hoping that this pair of Dark Confidants finds me a Plague Engineer, and then even if my opponent ports one of my lands, I have the Dark Ritual. Alright. The constructs are coming. And it's going to be bad for me. Alright, Bobs. I mean, obviously I'll float mana. Grab a Thoughtseize and a Marsh Flats. Not what I'm looking for. Plague Engineer for draw step. Nope. So it feels like my opponent has something like a Thalia here. Yep. That's a thing. I think I need to save this, this Dark Ritual. Yeah. And I also think it's somewhat likely that my opponent does not have 2 cards in hand that I actually want to try and take. So I am in a world of hurt here, because my opponent is going to start making Urza Saga construct tokens, which are going to be bigger than my Bobs, and my Bobs are draining me for life anyway. So I am really hoping to get a Plague Engineer. I can't reiterate that enough. I am really hoping to find a Plague Engineer so that I can eliminate these humans and make life a little bit easier on myself. So I'm down to 13. The Bobs are probably going to deal me 3-ish damage on average. And I am good with doing some deck thinning here, because this also gives me another white source, so that I can't be ported off white if my opponent pivots and decides to port me after seeing me flip something particularly good via Bobs. Alright, Bob. What's the damage? Alright, Prismatic Ending. That's not bad. Rest in peace, Caracas. Alright. So I need to ask myself the question, how do I win this game? The answer is probably activating a Helm of Obedience and killing my opponent. I'm going to play towards that. I'm going to go ahead and Prismatic Ending and answer that Aether Vial. Oh no. Not more gas. Okay, sure. And then I am going to stick this Rest in Peace. So this allows me to potentially get a Helm, play a Helm, activate a Helm. I have Caracas so that I can bounce this Thalia, so I don't even need to like pay the Thalia tax next turn. I can just like bounce Thalia instead and kind of gain some traction that way. There is also a very real world where I just die to my own Bobs here, unfortunately. There's also a world where my opponent has a Pithing Needle boarded in against me and figures out what's going on with this Rest in Peace and just answers Helm of Obedience, and then I probably more or less instantly just die. So the real question this turn is another artifact creature token coming here, or is my opponent just going to float the mana? Ah, shit. That name's Helm of Obedience, and then I think I'm done. Yeah. I just think realistically, I am probably not beating board now. Okay, so no actions there. Do I trade? I don't think I trade with that construct. I think I take 5, hope I don't die, find something absolutely insane. I have to trade both Bobs for 1 construct token. I don't think that ends with me being in a profitable place. I think I have to draw Plague Engineer. Play Plague Engineer. Oh, that hurts. Yeah. I think I have to draw Plague Engineer here. Alright, Bob. Yep, alright. I mean, I'll float white. Okay, that's a fracture. That's interesting. That's a sudden edict. I think I'm pretty gone here. I'm gonna click on a couple of cards and see if things happen, but I expect my opponent just junks this artifact here, and then I just die to my own bobs next turn. There's a weird world where my opponent loses the Mother of Runes, and then I can do some stuff. Man. Alright. GG's. I am not going to survive this onslaught for long enough to get through this. Alright. I've kept my opening hand for round 3 here. I have a reasonable mix of lands and spells. I'm a little land heavy, but the Bob should help with that. Okay, bye Bob. I'm gonna assume that we're playing against something like Doomsday here. Just, I see Underground Sea, I think Doomsday. That's where we're at. Sorry, Ant, you're not the most popular Underground Sea deck anymore. It is what it is. You had your time in the sun. Yep, alright, Bob's gone. Rip Bob. Ha 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 ha. The second coming of Bobbert. Yes. That was a pretty lucky draw. I'm super happy to have picked that up. Because basically whatever deck my opponent is playing against, I need to dig towards more discard before they just like combo off and do their thing. Like decks like a blue-based control decks are very much not popular anymore. We're not living in the days anymore where Grixis is just absolutely everywhere. So my mind is fully on this is combo. In fact, I think that is true enough that I just play Dauthi Voidwalker here over Dark Confidant in case the graveyard is relevant. It might not be, but it might. Like, things like Reanimator still do exist. Alright, so there's another fetch land. This is potentially just like 3 mana, it's Doomsday time. It's the vibe I'm getting here. Oh, they're paying costs now. Oh, no they're not. Oh yeah, so the Dauthi Voidwalker does shut off the like Doomsday Consider pile, right? Elective Brutality. Okay. So we are potentially just playing against Reanimator. That's where you tend to see Collective Brutality. Alright. So I will now play a Bob. Like, my opponent discarded a Lotus Petal too, so that puts us pretty clearly into the, like, this is a combo deck territory, rather than, like, this is just, like, a control deck. I like being the main deck Rest in Peace, Dauthi Voidwalkers versus the Reanimator deck. That feels pretty okay. Plus, we will definitely confuse our opponent about what I'm doing with all of these triomes. All right, so this is the eternal question: do I cast these Hymn to Tourach? Oh, thank God. That was going to be a difficult decision. That's one of those, let me know in the comments whether or not you would have cast the Hymn to Tourach situations. Okay, like, I either need to talk about this for 5 minutes or move on, so I'm going to move on. Let me know in the comments, would you have cast Hymn to Tourach versus Reanimator in that situation? Okay, I would like Surgical Extraction, I would like Sudden Edict, I would like Opposition Agent, I would like Necromantia. Necromantia does search graveyard, hand, and library, so like it can get rid of reanimation cards, it can get rid of the entombs, it can get rid of like a creature that's already in graveyard. It's powerful. So I do not want Prismatic Ending. The discard's awkward. The discard's so awkward. I think I will keep Thoughtseize, but get rid of the random Hymn to Tourach, and I'll probably keep Tidehollow Sculler, because that doesn't go directly to graveyard. From here, basically all of my cards are good. I could not play Necromantia. Let's not play Necromantia on the draw. Yep. This'll do. I need a second land, but I think I have like 21 more lands to hit or something crazy like that. I think having 2 pieces of discard that I can cast already, plus a graveyard hate piece that I can cast already is enough, especially against the slower blue-black Reanimator, that this is just, like, totally reasonable. Okay. So let's grab a scrub land. And I will Thoughtseize my opponent. Ooh, so we have some Tin Fins elements here. So, a little bit of a weird situation. Since my opponent has open mana, I can't just, like... Okay, I can get super cute, I can take an Entomb, and then when my opponent goes to fetch, I could Surgical the other Entomb. I am going to do that, and I think that's a wild enough line that my opponent won't play around that. If my opponent plays around this, like, good on them. Yeah. Surgical Extraction on Entomb. Delicious. Oh! Alright. I'll admit I'm feeling myself a little bit there on that line. That was a good one. So, Medea Magica rolled a 2. Francis rolled a 5. I believe that means that Francis won the roll, but then somehow we did a roll-off, and then somehow we did another roll-off, and then that happened. I don't know if, like, we had so many roll-offs in a row that some of them just didn't get recorded or what, but it's kind of weird looking. My hand has a little bit too much mana for me to be, like, super happy about what's going on here, but I opted to keep it. Alright, Ragavan, that's fine. I will Swords to Plowshares that. Hope it doesn't get dazed. Cry if it gets dazed. Hope that by the time this video has been posted, Ragavan has been banned in the format. I'm in super bad shape if this Swords to Plowshares doesn't resolve, because I can just, like, get Wastelanded, get knocked off 2 mana, this land enters tapped, yada 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 yada. If I don't get Wastelanded, my next turn is actually pretty good. I probably play 2 Dark Rituals, and then go him and Dauthi Voidwalker in some order. Opponent is a fan of the channel. You're a fan of the channel, you won't Wasteland me, right? Right? So it's treason, then. Alright. Tapped Castle Locthwain. And I cannot reiterate enough how bad that is. Because we'd had 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. If this was not an ETB tapped land, I would have rattled off all 3 of these cards on turn 2. Now instead, my opponent can ponder, look for Wasteland, take me off of this mana, and, you know, I'll, like, drink my own tears or whatever. So an Expressive Iteration went to Graveyard there. That's still only going to be 2 types after Ponder hits the Graveyard. So I'm only taking 1 this turn. Daze is so good against me right now, though. Like, holy shit. We'll see if my opponent has, like, a follow-up Ragavan or something. Okay, I lucked out. Okay, and I hit another land. All around good stuff. I'm gonna go ahead and fetch. And I think I'm just gonna grab a scrub land here. I'm already susceptible to Wasteland. Dark Ritual. Dark Ritual. Storm is 2. I am going to go ahead and burn the other Dark Ritual so that I can play my cards around Daze here. Alright, Storm is 3. Next up, I think I am going to play Dauthi Voidwalker. And then I am going to follow that up with Hymn to Tourach before I put this Bob into play. Alright, what went to exile? Oh, Uro. Okay. And then I will play Dark Confidant. Okay, that has gotten movement. There's a Trop, so that means not Lightning Bolt. Probably means Brainstorm. So now these surveilled cards are going to exile instead of Graveyard, so I'm keeping this from growing. And I have kind of fully played around, like, both Daze and double Daze. Played around Spell Pierce. And I have resolved both of these permanents. So my opponent and I are probably in similar situations. My board is much better, but they have more cards. Okay, that's fine. Hopefully I can recoup that with Bob. Bob eats a Lightning Bolt, though. I'm sad. Dash Ragavan. I believe my Bob is more valuable than that Ragavan. That Ragavan is pretty damn valuable. But my opponent has to keep sinking mana into Ragavan. I think I'm good with this. If my opponent hits a Swords to Plowshare specifically off Ragavan, it, like, super sucks for... God! Why do I even fucking say these things? I am just, like, the harbinger of my own fucking doom. Okay. It is super interesting to me that my opponent went for Dauthi Voidwalker over Dark Confidant. Alright. So it's fetch time. I think I have to get another Scrubland. I'm still Wasteland vulnerable. And if I get a basic Plains, then I get wasted off of black. That's super bad for me. I'm still in the situation where I don't want to block the Ragavan, so I'm just going to crash in with Bob. Oh no. That's the third Wasteland. That's real bad. Alright. Are you gonna spike Swords to Plowshares again? I might actually cry if it happens. No, okay, it was a Plains. Which is a card I would have wanted, but it's okay. Oh, that's fine. I'll take my 2 damage here. My opponent is very much favored. This Ragavan is hitting me for 2, making my opponent extra mana, drawing them cards. Like, I'm gonna be at 8 after this. I'm probably taking 3 to 3.5 average damage a turn just from like Ragavan and Bob put together. Like there's only 4 Swords of Plowshares in my deck. Such suffering. Such absolute suffering. And now I can't like rip Rest in Peace, and like exile the graveyards either. This one's pretty close to over. Until my opponent has a second threat, I don't think I'm ready to actually concede. Once they have a second threat, I don't think I can reasonably win. I'm under a real amount of pressure right now, given my life total. Scrubland went to exile. So I might not have very many untapped white sources remaining. Yeah, that's 3 Scrublands in my graveyard. Oh, okay. Not going to beat that right now. Will I draw the Rest in Peace for the Rubbins, though? That's the real question. No, I drew a Triome. I think this one's far enough gone that I can go ahead and pack it in. Okay. I would like Sudden Edict. Kind of like all 11 of these are like reasonable cards that I can play. I just kind of have to like sculpt in my mind how am I going to play this game. Because like Plague Engineer is fine against like the Ragavans and Dragon Rage Channelers, but bad versus the Uros. So I think I showed my opponent Dauthi Voidwalker, but not Rest in Peace. My opponent might end up going down on graveyard-centric stuff. I don't know how much graveyard hate I am supposed to actually board in. I think I do not want Tide Hollow Sculler. I think the body is a liability, as we saw with my opponent spiking my Swords to Plowshares. I think I don't want those. When I'm on the play, my discard is better than when I'm on the draw considerably, but I'm still not sure how good it actually is. Like, I can play Plague Engineers over some Hymn to Tourachs. And then it's a question of, like, do I just want the ability to nuke Uro from my opponent's deck via, like, either Necromentia or Surgical? Or do I want to play Opposition Agents to keep my opponent from getting to higher mana numbers and also just having a higher threat density? Him is super awkward with my opponent having Uro, but, like, Thoughtseize is also not amazing if my opponent has Expressive Iteration and Uro. Like, discard's just not at a premium right now in Legacy. I think I'm going to board these in and just, like, junk my discard and plan on playing a hard-ish control game. This is 59. I have to run, like, 1 discard spell, 1 Necromentia, 1 Surgical or something like that. Surgical is a little weird with, like, Rest in Peace and Dauthi Voidwalker. I'm going to play 1 Thoughtseize to just give me another turn 1 play. Thoughtseize as peak also just, like, is not that bad. Absolutely. Absolutely keep. So, I'm going to play land, pass... Oh, shit. Oh, no. Opposition Agent has Flash. I'm good. Sorry, I just had this momentary brain fart where like, oh no, Opposition Agent is a creature. Anyway, I want to do this to play around a Force of Negation. They're not super popular in Delver right now, but I just want to play this Opposition Agent on turn 1 around Force of Negation and Daze and whatnot. You can try to get greedier, and like if my opponent has like Volcanic Island, Lightning Bolt, like this is a thing that can happen. But otherwise, this is potentially just very brutal early on here. And I'll crash in for 3. Opponent goes to 17, and it is not currently clear whether or not they have access to mana that matters. Yeah. And then I will just like play a Plague Engineer out here. So I'm gonna grab my opponent for 3 points of damage, bring him to 14. And I'm just gonna fetch a Scrubland. If my opponent is wastelanding me multiple times, I'm good with it. I want to keep access to white mana, and if I get wastelanded 2 times, I'm already going to lose access to white, whereas getting the Scrubland now means that I play around that. Let's stop my opponent from Ragavanning. Oh, opposition agent. This feels worse than Chalice of the Void. Oh, absolutely. All right, good stuff. I'll bash in for another 5. This opposition agent has taken my opponent off of just their entire deck in an extremely rude fashion. Oh my god. Yeah, we straight up just won this game by playing an opposition agent. I have so much removal to murder my opponent's creatures if they do actually take my opposition agent out of play. I honestly just wish I had another threat so this game was actually over. Yep, yeah, just absolutely murdered my opponent with 1 opposition agent there. Okay, on the draw, I could get rid of this last Thoughtseize here and play 1 more answer to an Uro. I think I'm okay with that, because, like, I am very likely to Prismatic Ending or Swords to Plowshares on turn 1 anyway. It's just a question of, like, which one of these do I get? I think I'm gonna go with Necromentia. It also, like, is a weird answer to a Ragavan that is repeatedly dashed. It just, like, turns it into a 2/2 zombie. Yeah, I'm gonna keep this. It's a little awkward, because, like, the opposition agent is notably worse on the draw. But I have an answer to a turn 1 creature. Oh man, if my opponent doesn't fetch now, I also have kind of an answer to their first fetch land, potentially. I'm gonna go Scrubland pass. I'm gonna try to time this opposition agent in a way that gets this fetch land. Oh man, I'm gonna do it. They're gonna try to fetch to clear this brainstorm, and I'm going to double Dark Ritual opposition agent and get their fetch land. Yeah. Yeah. Let's fucking go. You know what's coming. You know it's coming. Ah. Ah. I can't pay for it. Okay. They have gotten another trop. Is that a motherfucking nimble mongoose? Is that a nimble mongoose? Little goosey boy. Alright, do I want some basics? Nah. Let's grab Scrublands. Go ahead and fetch. Go ahead and Dark Ritual this out. I've already, like, super telegraphed that I have this opposition agent now, so I'm not gonna, like, try to surprise my opponent with it. I wonder if my opponent does have access to red mana. I know one of their cards is the Tropical Island that they returned to their hand already. Got a Wasteland. That's fine. Ooh, okay. That's some Uro fuel. Alright, take a peek. Alright, Nimble Mongoose does not attack in yet. So they have opted not to Wasteland me. There's a world where if I attack with opposition agent, I end up losing this creature in combat, but that's relatively unlikely. It would have to involve my opponent wastelanding their own tropical island and also playing like a brainstorm or something. I don't think that's going to happen. I'm going to go ahead and take the hit here. I'm willing to trade 3 damage for 3 damage in the situation that I'm currently in. All right, no end of turn play from my opponent. Yeah, they don't seem to have access to red mana right now. Okay. That's horrifying. I have Plague Engineers, so I do have answers to that. Okay, so my opponent played around a Plague Engineer there. Or not a Plague Engineer, another opposition agent. I'm going to fetch a tapped Triome, which I expect that my opponent will blow up, but I just don't want I don't want to hit a tapped land. I am going to go ahead and just continue to fetch out lands. Actually, I want to play around Daze, so I'm just going to play Rest in Peace around a single Daze this turn. I shouldn't have fetched yet, but I want to pull this Triome out of my deck. But I just exposed myself to double days. All right. Graveyard's off. Next turn I can play Helm of Obedience around days and attempt to win. If I can sandbag this a little longer, I might. But the True Name Nemesis is super scary. It's 3 damage a turn, and if I start attacking, I take 4 damage a turn instead. If I draw something like a Plague Engineer, I will absolutely play Plague Engineer over. Never mind. We fucking jammin'. We jammin'. Alright, here's a Helm. Force of Will, Double Daze, Spell Pierce. Oh! Okay. 100% was not expecting that. That's awkward since I have the second Helm. Alright, I'm gonna attack, I think. I'm not sure whether or not I'm supposed to activate this Helm. It's super awkward. If my opponent attacks with the Nimble Mongoose, I might. Because, like, blocking with that and trading with that in combat is pretty reasonable for me. It's a little awkward if I hit, like, an Uro with a Helm and I throw that into the graveyard. But the upside of hitting something like a True Name Nemesis or, I don't know, a Green-Red God, for example, is pretty insane. There is my opponent's graveyard count to worry about for things like Nimble Mongoose. Oh, don't just play another True Name. Don't do it. Okay, they have found red mana, which means Lightning Bolt is a thing. Yeah, okay. So at this point, I have a resolved Helm. It's probably better for me. Okay. I have a Caracas. That thing will never actually attack me in combat. I'm fine with this. So there's another land drop for my opponent. I think I don't activate this Helm and then try and rip one of my remaining Rest in Pieces or Dauthi Voidwalkers. So I'm willing to take the one from the Mongoose here. Man, if I trade a creature for a Mongoose and then Sudden Edict True Name, that's pretty good for me. Okay, I think my plan has changed. This game got super weird. Like, now I have a realistic answer to my opponent's True Name Nemesis that I didn't have a turn ago. So I think I'm going to end up sinking a real amount of mana into Helm of Obedience and trying to trade with this Mongoose. The thing is, the Mongoose is going to turn into a 3/3, though, if I mill too many cards. Man, my opponent already has Wasteland. So, like, that's already 6. There's a... So, like, if I do it for X equals 1, so there's only 6 cards in the graveyard, then they just Wasteland, that's the 7th, and then I don't trade via, like, Ragavan or Dragon Rage Channeler right now. Maybe this wasn't a realistic plan. I'm going to Helm for 3 and leave up Sudden Edict. Now, maybe I'm supposed to Sudden Edict first, because that makes my opponent... I don't know. I don't know if my opponent's thinking about, like, Plague Engineer versus Graveyard size right now. Like, I don't know where my opponent's head is at. Okay. So, I've gotten rid of the Mongoose. I guess I don't need to respond to a True Name Nemesis hit here. I'll just take that 3. I'm going to Helm my opponent, because if I hit a creature, I can just play a new Helm. And I could find something like a Dragon Rage Channeler that could help me dig towards the graveyard hate I need to actually, like, get a win. Okay, I have my own Nimble Mongoose. Alright. I bash in for 1. Not a faster clock than what my opponent has. And I play a new Helm of Obedience. This one I think I just have to save in an attempt to actually win the game with it, because I can't race what my opponent has going on here. My opponent just has me dead in 3 turns via True Name Nemesis. Alright. I'm down to 4. I think I have 6 outs to just outright kill my opponent. Okay. That's fine. Life total don't matter. I will Swords to Plowshares this playing around days. I don't think I'm going to play it around Spell Pierced. I would be super happy for the Swords to Plowshares to get Spell Pierced and then make it so that, like, Rest in Peace is more likely to resolve in the future. Okay. Necromantia. I'm going to cast this card. I have no idea whether or not this card is going to resolve. And I only have some ideas what I am going to name. I'm going to see how my opponent reacts to this. Well, I can rip the Uro from their graveyard, but I don't think that that's better than just removing Force of Will from their deck, because I'm on a 1-turn clock. The other thing I could name is potentially like a Lightning Bolt. If my opponent has one in hand, though, they just cast it now, and then I am just dead on board. Okay, what do you have? All right. I do not know if I am on any outs anymore. I'll Helm you. I don't really know what this accomplishes. Just put some more cards into your graveyard. Okay. So now, I believe I name Force of Will and make it so that a Plague Engineer could kill a True Name Nemesis. Okay. I have grabbed Force of Will. Anything interesting left in my opponent's deck that I haven't seen? 1 Tarmogoyf. Okay. So my opponent gets a 2/2, which means I have to chump block with my not so nimble mongoose. I am down. I have 6 cards in my graveyard, unfortunately. If my opponent like randomly wastelands me and turns my mongoose into a 3/3, that would be great. Oh my god, it just happened. Yeah, my opponent missed out by killing my nimble mongoose. Yeah, that was a big pun. I am at 1. Do I draw the Plague Engineer? My opponent is going to get another redraw with this Uro, but I am still alive if I draw Plague Engineer. All right, take your card. I'm not in a great situation, obviously, but I'm still alive. Dark Ritual. GG's. That was a crazy match. All right, for round 5 here, I'm looking at a 1-lander. I just have to mulligan that. Probably have to keep this one. I don't have any threat, which I don't like. I go ahead and throw back. I'm just gonna throw back Caracas. I think I want to play this game just having basics in case I'm playing against Delver or something like that. I'm gonna give up the opportunity to play Swords to Plowshares here to just like not telegraph more information about my deck. All right, that backfires a little bit here. Now I can't really him to Tourach on 2. Awkward. Okay. So I'm just gonna plan on Swords to Plowsharing whatever Lord my opponent plays. And we're gonna sandbag the him to Tourach for a little while in hopes of hitting something more potent, like, say, True Name Nemesis. Alright, there's the land. Show me potato salad. Okay, opponent is just going to go for an attack. I'm gonna just take the 1 damage here and be totally fine with it. Go to 19, and we might see a post-combat Lord. My opponent might just be trying to, like, sneak in some damage now before, like, this potentially gets removed. Alright. So they have Sylvialun. They have this god thing. Okay. That's fine. I'm gonna go ahead and I'll just take out the 2/1. I think I get to just like largely play around this effect at this point since I do have 3 lands. So I am oh wow. My opponent is probably a wasteland deck. I think removing 1 creature a turn in order to play around wasteland is fine. Let's see if I hem some goodies out of my opponent's hand. Oh, wow. Master of the Pearl Trident and True Name Nemesis. Dope. So now I'll just Swords to Plowshares a Curse Catcher this turn, and then I'll Prismatic Ending something away. Or, I guess since I don't have a 3rd type, I'll Swords to Plowshares this, sure. So let's go ahead and do that. I'll Swords to Plowshares this, have Prismatic Ending for the next Lord that hits play. My opponent being on the draw and drawing an extra card off of Silvergill Adept kind of puts them ahead here. This is other merfolk have it, right? Yeah, other merfolk have it. Alright, so I'm just going to go ahead and immediately Swords to Plowshares that. Like, I know that I'm going to do it. I'm very confident about that. I'm not going to give my opponent another draw. Or let them untap mana for that matter. Ooh, okay. So my opponent's at the point where they are out of gas. I will have to decide whether or not I want to play Helm of Obedience around something like a Daze. It's pretty likely my opponent has counter spells. Ooh, it's a Flash Merfolk. Sure. Hull Breacher not really doing anything against me other than just being a 3/2 creature. So I'll go to 15 here. My opponent has hard cast Force of Will mana, so I think I'm just going to jam a Helm if I draw a land. Alright. My Prismatic Ending, not having the third color for Hull Breacher here, is a little annoying. It's not like that bad. Starts to become worse if my opponent just has more Flash Idiots. I can Prismatic Ending this on my next turn, so I have something to do with my mana now. But these creatures randomly having Flash and just like happening to play around Prismatic Ending is a little tough. I chose to play around Wasteland this game rather than getting like a Triome or a Scrubland or something. Okay. Fetch to 9. Get attack for 5. Get attack for 7 if my opponent has a Lord. I think I need to just jam here. I'm not super hopeful that it's going to work. And this has to be untapped. So I have to jam here so that I can draw a land and then jam and activate next turn if my opponent has the counterspell for this. Which they do not. I can die to double Lord here. Okay, that is the concession. We got a little lucky there, I'm not going to lie. Alright, what do we have for Merfolk? Sudden Edict is pretty reasonable. I could play Opposition Agent as something that will just straight up trade with my opponent's creatures. Plague Engineer is fine. It's not amazing, but it's fine. It means I don't have to necessarily use removal spells on some of the smaller creatures like Curse Catcher. Not super into Tide Hollow Sculler here. That's a combo matchup card. I guess let's figure out what am I not cutting? I'm not cutting Prismatic Endings, Helm of Obediences, Voidwalkers, Rest in Peace. I'm going to be playing the control role. I'm not cutting Dark Confidants. That looks like it means that either discard or rituals are going down. Do I want to play Opposition Agents? Because if I am willing to play Opposition Agents to just trade with bodies, I can do this, and that's 59. And then I can just, like, play a Fracture so that I can answer an Ether Vial. Or I can play a piece of discard. I'm not sure that I super care about Ether Vial. Like, I have Prismatic Endings already. If my opponent randomly has Pithing Needle, having an extra Fracture is okay. Alright. I don't know that this is actually better than just him or something. Yeah, I don't know. I also could, like, accept that I'm going to play a much slower matchup and not play Dark Ritual. But Dark Ritual, like, fueling out Bob so that I can keep gas going, or, like, it fueling out my combo is totally reasonable. I'm not really in love with this double Helm hand. Like, this is a 6-card hand that I would keep, but I think I can fish for something that's just better than this. This definitely qualifies as being better. This is a hand that I am hoping to just win via combo. I will put back my Opposition Agent. And I am willing to keep this because I have just so many removal spells that I can draw. I will probably play tapped Castle Locthwain on turn 1 over just, like, playing Scrubland. Because if my Scrubland on turn 1 were to get Wastelanded, then the Castle Locthwain is always going to enter tapped. Alright, your Cavern's on Merfolk. You've got the Ether Vial to start off. That's fine. Oh. That's awkward. Turn has, like, huge reaching like, which land I play has huge reaching implications if I get Wastelanded. I'll lead on Caracas. But this is definitely a situation where, like, I could spend 5 minutes talking about, like, sequencing for that turn. And the only thing I'm doing is playing a land drop. Yeah. Oh. 2 colorless mana? Oh. Okay. You are Chalice Merfolk. That's fine. Like, I only have one drop currently, and I don't actually have that many in the deck. Didn't draw a Dark Ritual to just, like, punish me for saying that, so that's good. So I'm probably losing this scrubland at some point in the not too distant future. Oh. I'm somewhat surprised the rest in peace gets countered there, instead of just letting the rest in peace resolved and saving the counterspell for like a Helm or something later. Okay. I can potentially eat this with the Plague Engineer next turn, but like, you know, Wasteland is going to do Wasteland stuff. So it's probably going to be 2 turns. And there's also a decent chance that my opponent just grows this. Yep. Okay. I'm going to like drag this all the way to the left so I don't accidentally play it. And I'll take my 2. I'm at 18. Yeah. In case I get Wastelanded a second time, I think I just play the Castle Locked Wayne here. So when I go to game 3, I am going to probably want to play the Fracture. And I might want to board out Dark Ritual. It's weird, though, because the Dark Ritual gets better on the play. So, like, IDK. Alright. Sequencing. How do I do this? I think I just kind of assume that this game is going to go on for a little while and don't just go for, like, Voidwalker into Helm immediately. I name Merfolk. So this shrinks these creatures. Doesn't outright kill them. But if I can take this Lord of Atlantis out of play, it's good for me. Oh, just straight up Echoing Truth it back, sure. I mean, that's worth 3 mana and 2 damage. I don't know how good that actually is, though. Because that's, like, my opponent has 1 card left, and that's one of their few answers to, like, me actually comboing off. That is uncounterable due to Cavernous Souls. So that is not a bad play there. Yeah, so I'm slowly pulling ahead here. My opponent has plenty of draws that put them in a good situation, but life is pretty good for me. The thing I have to decide here is, do I just want to try to kill my opponent next turn? My opponent is currently Hellbent. I can just play Helm of Obedience here and then play Dauthi Voidwalker, activate, and kill my opponent next turn, unless they draw something that interacts with me. It basically needs to be another Echoing Truth. If my opponent draws a Lord, I'll take 3, 6, 9 damage and exactly die. That's awkward. But my opponent will have like 7-ish cards that just immediately kill me on the spot. I don't like that. Yeah, I think I'm going to take 1 bonus turn here and just go ahead and play the Plague Engineer. I'm going to chill on this Marsh Flats and not activate it. Technically, like, I could hold up Caracas for the Sylvialun, or however that thing is pronounced. But I think I don't want to fetch with this if I don't necessarily have to. Or rather, I don't want to fetch with it immediately. I want to fetch with it and grab a Triome so that I open up some other lines later. All right. Now I do think I have to hold up the Caracas, though. So I'll fetch again. Grab I guess a Scrubland, like I'm super vulnerable to a lot of stuff already. Alright, so obviously no attacks from me. We'll see if my opponent drew something like a True Name Nemesis. Nope. Okay, well, it looks like we've got no attacks or no play this turn. Alright, I mean, let's try to win. Here's Dauthi Voidwalker. Gotta be Force of Will blue card, or like an Echoing Truth or something. Okay, it is Force of Will plus blue card. So the next question is, do I play Dark Confidant? I think so. It helps to insulate me in combat a little bit. Margins are really tight here. I don't think I go for another tapped Triome here. I think I save this, because if I randomly flip a Helm of Obedience or something, it's kind of rough. Alright, that is another Curse Catcher. My opponent's house of cards falls down real quick if I find a removal spell for Lord of Atlantis. Or for Chalice, for that matter. Alright, Bob, be good to me. Opposition Agent. Not really what I'm going for. Do I play it, / when do I play it? Like, what is beating me here other than me just killing myself with Bob? I think I just die by killing myself with Bob a lot of the time. Let's, I guess, cast this now. And I'm just going to hold back. Like, Either I'm going to break the floodgates open and just absolutely obliterate my opponent, or I'm going to die to Bob because I just, like, flipped too many ICMC cards. Alright, Bob. Sudden Edict. Sudden Edict, not really what I'm looking for here. I'll cast it. I don't think I'm supposed to cast this second one, because my opponent could, like, Vile in that Sylvaelin thing and body me. I think I hold back all 3 creatures so that my opponent can't sneak a single point of damage here. Note, I do think I needed the Bob, because otherwise at some point, like, my opponent just plays another Lord and starts overcoming what I have in combat, or my opponent, like, finds a True Name Nemesis and gets in those last few points of damage pretty easily. Like, I am fine with playing my Bob. Like, it's already gotten me, what, 2 cards deeper, 3 cards deeper? And the top of my deck is not looking hot. Alright. This is probably an Echoing Truth. Oh, it's another Chalice. Sure, absolutely. Alright, Bob. Don't kill me. Alright, good job, Bob. Yeah, not exactly gas on top of ye old deck here. I'll put another Helm in play. I guess if I have 2 Helms in play, it'll kind of be free to activate one of them at my opponent's end step. Try to, like, look for a True Name Nemesis or something. But I am playing a very strange game of Russian roulette here. Got 6 outs to kill my opponent. So now what does my opponent do? Because my opponent can attack in here. They do not. I'll Helm my opponent for 2. Some of these old merfolk buff things on both sides of the battlefield, which is super awkward. If I die to Bob. I do die to Bob. Unfortunate. Yeah, it was a very long time before I drew something that was actually going to kill my opponent here. So I think my opponent would have accumulated forces that would have just beaten me if I did not play the Bob to dig deeper. Alright, now that I know my opponent has Chalice, I do want Fracture. Although I am really light on 1-drops, especially if I board out like 1 Dark Ritual or something. Yeah, maybe I'll just board out 1 Dark Ritual. Board out Dark Ritual, draw 2 in opening hand. That is how it works. I mean, yeah, this is fine. It's not good. This is what I'm keeping. Throw back 1 fetch land. Go ahead and fetch. I guess due to Force of Negation, I'll play Opposition Agent in my opponent's upkeep. Dark Ritual. Here is my equivalent of Delver of Secrets. The thing that kind of sucks about this is that my opponent can play something like a Curse Catcher on 1, and then Sudden Edict is not a real answer to what my opponent has going on. But I don't think I can go deeper than 5 here. Or rather, I guess deeper than 6. Like, I think I need card density to win this matchup. Like, a Plague Engineer, for example, is good, but it's not just absolutely insane, just, like, instantly take over a matchup good or anything. Alright. Land Bash. I have Sudden Edict for a Lord that my opponent just plays out on their turn. So that's the good news. The bad news is, you know, I'm essentially running on empty as of turn 2. It's not an okay place to be. This is just gonna cantrip, isn't it? Oh, it's a Chalice. Sure. That currently does not have real text, so that's fine. My opponent did kind of get a time walk out of their mana usage, though. Alright, so the Swords of Plowshares is dead. And I'll just go ahead and bash in for 3 with this Opposition Agent. Things just not lining up well for me with this hand. Like, long term, I still do have a combo finish that does real things, but in the short term, I don't really have anything going on. Unsurprisingly, Cavern goes on Merfolk. Ugh. Yeah, so now I don't even get to, like, trade Sudden Edict with a creature that matters. I'm just hitting Silvergill Adept. Do I use it here? Yeah, I guess I do. Like, there's weird situations where I try to save it for if I draw Plague Engineer, but if I cast a Plague Engineer, my opponent, like, just files in the Master of the Pearl Trident that I know about in response. Ugh. I also can't attack with Opposition Agent anymore unless I'm willing to treat Opposition Agent as a removal spell for a 2/2 Lord, which I might be, honestly. Hard to say. Like, this is kind of all I have going on, which is not really acceptable against a deck that is as creature dense as my opponent's deck is. Sure. Yes, I am on the I will recast this plan. I'll just do it now. Like, we all know it's coming. I believe I have one more basic. Sorry, I took a break in between recording rounds here. Do I have 2 planes? No. I only have 3 basics. So I do not have enough basics to just, like, play entirely on basics this game. So I am going to lose a card to Wasteland at some point here. I will probably just hold this for a little while, though. So I know my opponent has a Master of the Pearl Trident. I don't know whether or not they have a second Lord. If they have a second Lord, things get weird, and I can't actually trade with this creature in combat. And my opponent is going to put me to that test right now, because they're going to attack with this 3/3. And if they have another Lord, I just lose out on this creature for nothing. But I'm so far behind here that I just think I have to take this. Yeah. And at this point, I expect that I am outright dead. Alright, I lose that creature in combat. But I don't think I can just, like, not make that call this turn and try to block one of these next turn, because I'll be in the same situation next turn, where if my opponent has another Lord, they just get me. Okay, this is what I needed. I needed to draw Dauthi Voidwalker this turn, followed by a Helm next turn. Like, that's how I win. My opponent just needs to Wasteland me to keep me off of that, but, like, there's worlds where they don't do that, because they didn't do it already, right? So we'll see. I have an out. I am not going to thin my deck by fetching with Marsh Flats, because I am afraid that if I do so, my opponent will Wasteland me. Like, whereas if I just sit here, my opponent might not Wasteland me. Alright. Looks like we have another Lord coming. Okay. Oh, it's a Harbinger of the Tides. This can only return tapped creatures, right? Yeah. Alright, I am guessing all 3 of those come in. I have Shadow, so I physically can't even think about blocking. And I go to 8. If my opponent Wastelands me, I have no outs here. I am not going to fetch, because I don't want to give them another situation to think about actually Wastelanding me. Okay, I did not draw the Helm, but like, my opponent could have Wastelanded me and put me on 0 outs. With that Chalice in play and my Shadow creature, that is GG's, and so we end up with a 2/3 in this league. Overall thoughts on the deck list? Not bad. I did not really like Tide Hollow Sculler in this league. I think I sideboarded out every round that was not explicitly against combo. That doesn't mean, like, maybe it should not be in the deck at all, but I don't feel super great about it being there. The opposition agents out of the sideboard definitely overperformed. I have mixed feelings about some of the land choices. Again, in round 1, having 2 different triomes did give me the potential line of being able to Prismatic Ending a Jace away, which is, like, very much something that matters. But, like, we did see, like, the triomes coming into play tapped, and, like, the awkwardness with having a land like Castle Locthwain. I would rather just have another regular mana producing land in the deck than Castle Locthwain, I think. I think I want to just cut that card. Because this deck doesn't empty its hand sometimes, just because you have things like Source of Plowshares or Prismatic Ending that you can't cast just kind of sitting in it, so it's not just, like, 1 life for a card frequently in this deck. And B, because you do have, like, lands like Caracas and Plains, it's not just, like, free. It's not just a swamp with upside, it's a swamp with downside, in addition to just, like, being destroyed by Wasteland and stuff of that general nature. I do think the general idea of, like, trying to Dauthi Voidwalker Rest in Peace Helm stuff is pretty good, and a lot of the, like, Dragon Rage Channeler sort of things do take some splash damage from what we've got going on here. So I think this is a reasonable strategy. I felt pretty comfortable with how the sideboard was built, although, again, there is a little bit of awkwardness in Surgical Extraction, but I wanted to have some fast graveyard hate or something that I could use in conjunction with Thoughtseize or Him to rip combo pieces from my opponent's deck. I think we had some really cool lines this league, especially with the Surgical on the Entombs. And overall, this was a fun league to play. If you made it this far in the video and you're not subscribed already, all I'm saying is, like, come on. You're coming back. And if you haven't thrown me a like already, please consider doing so. Have a great rest of the day, and if you want to try this one out and muck with it, that information is available in the video description. See ya!